to me. Oops. Perfect. All right. I am going to be recording lessons today on R Markdown. This is the final section in a course that I'm putting together called Going Deeper with R. It should be released in a couple of weeks. I'm in the middle of doing that. I'm live streaming myself recording this. It is, just to be clear, this is not the final product. This is the very much the raw version of it with me doing it here live, and then I take the videos and I edit them after the fact. So I'd love to have you follow along with me. Give me feedback along the way, questions, comments, etc. I'm on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. Any of those places you can respond to, and I will get the comments. I'm looking over at my other screen where I have that. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I will likely kind of go back and forth, like do something, realize something isn't right, re-record. So yeah, I hope you enjoy watching it. Again, if you have any questions, just let me know in the chat. Okay, let me see. So I've yesterday recorded lessons on a kind of advanced text formatting, adding images, links, block quotes, footnotes in R Markdown today. And then I talked about various ways to make tables in R, attractive tables. Today we're going to be talking about advanced YAML. So actually, just one second, let me flip through this real quick. Yeah, so I'm going to give kind of a few options here, talk through how it works, and then I'll do some examples myself, and then give some exercises, and then go through the solutions. All right. Actually, sorry, let me just set up my recording. Let me just make sure that that's working. Perfect. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. The next topic that we're going to discuss is advanced YAML. These are things you can do to the YAML, to the top section, the sort of metadata of your R Markdown document, to change how it The next thing we'll discuss is advanced YAML. The YAML, as a reminder, is the very top section of your R Markdown document. It's sort of the metadata that gives R information about what to do with a document when you knit it to whatever format you're going to knit it to. I'm going to focus now on some advanced YAML with starting out with HTML. There are other things you can do with other formats, but what I'm going to present initially is to HTML. As you're probably realizing, I definitely recommend knitting to HTML. It just gives you a lot more flexibility than any other format. So the first thing you can do within your YAML is add a table of contents. You can see I've given a sample YAML here where I've put down on a new line, I've put output, and then on a new line with 2 spaces in front of it, HTML document, then a colon, then 2 more spaces, TOC true. What that does is it sets up a table of contents for you. I've done TOC depth 2. That determines how many levels of headers show up in the table of contents. So TOC depth 2 would mean that H1, so first level headers, and H2, second level headers will show up. TOC float will give you a floating table of contents. It'll put it on the left side. So you can see here, this is what this is actually a sample of some code from my fundamentals of R course, and you can see here that I've set up a floating table of contents. All right, let me. All right. So I've gone back into my sample report that I've been working on. You can see I'm up here in the YAML now. Now I still have this df print page, but that doesn't. I don't actually need that because I created a table down below. So I'm going to actually get rid of that. So let me do toc, whoops, true. And let me go ahead and knit that. I'm just going to actually redo that again. I want to do true in uppercase. I don't think it actually matters, but I like to be consistent. So let me add toc true. What that'll do is it'll give me a table of contents. So I'm going to go ahead and knit that. So now I'm in my HTML report. You can see here it's added a table of contents, and it's done it up here at the top. You can see introduction, which I click. If I click, it'll take me down there, and growth from 2017, 2018 to 2018, 2019. Let me also add the toc depth argument. Let me do 1. So that will only give me top level headers. In other words, the introduction should be the only thing that shows up in our table of contents. This growth header here should not show up because that's a second level header. So you can see now I've gone back to my report, and now only introduction shows up here. Let me do one last thing here. I'm going to do toc float true. Is that right? Yeah. And again, I'll just knit that. All right, I'll refresh this, and you can see now it's put the table of contents here on the left side. It doesn't really make sense because I only have 1, but like if I change this to 2, reknit, I edit this out when I go back after the fact. I edit out all the time for knitting. So you can see now I've got 2 levels here, introduction, growth from 2017, 2018. So it's gives me a nice floating table of contents. I like using this actually when I'm working in HTML. We can also set default figure options within our YAML. So we can set figure width using figure_width, figure height, same thing. And then figure captions, we can set it to true using true. Let me just do that last bit again because I flipped to the next slide too quick. And then figure captions we can set using fig_caption equals true. All right, let me go in here and update this. So I'll do fig width equals 10, fig height equals 8. And I'll do fig caption equals, oops, I keep doing equals, colon, true. I'm going to go ahead and knit that. Whoops, I tried to knit it and got an error. I realized I forgot a comma, so let me go ahead and knit again. What's going on here? Wait, why am I putting... Hold on, I have no idea why I'm putting comma. Well, I do know why, because arguments in functions, but definitely don't need those in the YAML. Yeah, that's working. I'm going to go back and re-record that in a second. All right, let me add some figure height and width options here. So actually I'll do fig height first. I'll make that 10, fig width, say 8, and fig caption, true. I'm going to do one thing too. I'm just going to add an option here, cache equals true. What that does, you know, well, you're probably not seeing this because I'm editing it out, but it actually takes a little while each time I knit. Just to make it quicker, I'm going to add cache equals true, which will mean that if the code chunk down here doesn't change, it'll just use the cached version, so the saved version. It'll just make it knit faster. Go ahead and knit that. So I think it actually takes, hope it's just taking a little while the first time, and then it'll be cached. Well, it seems like it's stuck or something. Yeah, okay. All right, so looking at my knitted report, I can scroll down here and you can see that my image here, my plot is now, it's 10 inches high. I'm in the US, so it's using inches, 8 inches wide. Now, it does not actually have a caption. To add a caption, we have to do something else. We have to go down to the code chunk where that the plot is produced. So I'm going to scroll down here. It's produced here. And we have to add fig cap equals, this is my caption. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and knit again. All right, now I've come back to my report. I'll scroll down and you can see it's added a caption for us here. If I were to go back into here and I were to change fig caption equals false and knit this, I'll come back here, I'll refresh this, weird. I thought it would go away. I wonder if I need to remove that cache. True. If anyone knows why, I expected it to go away when I removed the fig cap, when I changed fig caption to be false there. I was surprised when it showed up. Apparently there's something about how that works that I don't understand. Give it just a second. I'm going to remove that cache. It'll just take a little longer, but let me see if that's the issue. No, it doesn't seem to be the issue. Okay, well, I think I'll just not include that. It's pretty minor in any case. That cache equals true back there. If anyone does know, let me know. I don't actually use figure captions very much, which is why I'm not super familiar with them, but add this back. One thing you might notice here is that I'm actually setting the figure width down here, fig.width, in our setup code chunk. You might be wondering, wait, what's the difference? Because we can set it here and we can set it here. This is setting it for the entire document, no matter what format we're knitting to. This is only setting it for HTML documents. So for example, if I also knit to PDF, what do I need to do? Default. Again, I don't actually do this very much. Let me see if that works. Okay, let me yeah, so if I knit to PDF here, that those defaults that I set do not apply. You can see it is not the same dimensions that I set just for the HTML document. And it does actually here have a figure width of 10, or at least it goes to the width of the page, which should be like 8.5 or probably 7.5, given the boundary, the borders, the margins, excuse me. So just know that if you want to set it individually, if you're knitting to various formats, which you can of course do, you can set it individually up here. This will set it for all formats you knit to, but I believe, actually I should check this before I say that. Well, let me go back to, yeah. Let me try this. Fig height equals 2. Let me knit that. I'm just curious. I just want to make sure that I believe the options in the YAML override anything in the setup code chunk, but I just want to make sure. All right. Yeah, so anything you put here will override anything you put in your setup code chunk. So you can see, for example, I put fig height 2. So for my PDF document, if I open that up, you can see it's 2. But because I've specified here, fig height is 10, if I go into my HTML document, it still is 10. I'm going to actually just go ahead and delete those there. And I'm going to delete the PDF document because we're only knitting to HTML for now. Another extremely powerful part of R Markdown is parameters. What this does is it enables you to set parameters or kind of variables that you can use then later on throughout the process of knitting. Let me show you how this works. You list your parameters in your YAML. So you can put, for example, params, and here I've said state, and then you have to list a default, California, for example. What happens then is you can use the knit with parameters option, and then when you knit that, it will show it'll use that parameter as part of the knitting process. It's a little bit abstract now, so let me actually flip over to RStudio and show you how this might work. All right, so I'm working in RStudio. I am going to add a parameter, and I'm going to call it number of districts, or sorry, number of schools. And I'm going to have the default be 10. Your parameters can be, wait, hold on, I'm just thinking about how I want to actually do this. No, let me do district. All right, I'm in RStudio now. I'm going to add a parameter. So I'm going to add params, and note that I've put this back just 2 spaces indented because these parameters are going to apply globally. I don't want them just to be part of my HTML knitting. So I'm going to say params, and I'll do district, and I'll set my default, what was it called? Portland SD1J. All right, so now what I've done is I've added a parameter. Nothing, if I were to knit this now, nothing actually changes. Mahmoud, you're asking if everything is uploaded to YouTube channel later. Yes. If you go to rfortherestofus.com/live, here, I'll just actually type that in. That will, there's a link to YouTube from there, and they're all automatically uploaded there. They are, after I edit them, these will be part of a course that I'm making, which again, I'll just, I'm posting right now. And that's where they'll actually be edited together. People do the exercises. Everything is in one single place. All right, looking at our report, nothing has changed now. It looks exactly the same. Let's do this, though. Let's actually use our parameter now. Once we've added it here, we now have a new variable that we can use. And let me show you. I'm going to go down here because I'm actually going to change my table. So we have, if we use params $district, that gives us access to the district parameter. So let me run that. Or what is it, param? What am I doing wrong here? Maybe I just need to run down to there. I swear that's no. Gotta search this real quick. Maybe it would actually work if I. Yeah, no, that is right. All right, so at this point, I can now access this using code that looks like this. I type params $district. And what I can do now, that will return the value here. So in this case, it will return Portland SD1J. So I'm going to copy this here, and I'm going to remove where I actually typed out Portland SD1J. And instead, I'm going to put that params district in. So what I'm doing here is I'm saying, start with third grade math proficiency, then filter to only include the district that I list, which in this case is the same as Portland Public Schools, and then make the table that we made last time. So just to show you, I'm going to knit this. Okay, that did not work. I am very confused because I use parameters all the time. Oh, I think, do I need to, hold on. Yeah, I think I need to put parameters not indented. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna have to go back and re-record that. All right. Oops. Portland SD1J. Okay. All right, let's add a parameter. So I'm going to go up above my output, and I'm going to type params. And note that I'm doing this with no indentation because it's going to apply no matter what format we output to. And I'm going to say district, and you have to give a default. So I'll just say Portland SD1J. So now I have a parameter for the district, which is by default Portland School District 1J. Now, if I run the code, so I run everything down to here, I actually have a variable that I can access. So if I type params $district, you can see that it returns, if I look down here, Portland SD1J. I can use this throughout my report. So I can now replace, for example, instead of Portland SD1J, I can just replace params district. I'm going to go ahead and knit this, and I'll flip over here. I'll refresh this, and you'll see it's not actually any different. It's just showing me the top 10 districts in Portland that had the highest growth in third grade math proficiency from these 2 years. Watch, though, if I do this. Actually, I need to remember. Hold on, let me remember what Beaverton is actually called. No, that's not there. All right, watch what I can do now. I could change this. I could type, for example, Beaverton SD48J, and I'm going to knit this, flip over here, refresh this. Okay, that didn't work. What did I do wrong? Oh, I think I need to turn my cache off because and I'm going to actually remove cache equals true here to make sure that it knits using my parameter. Now I've gone back here and refreshed this and look at the school districts. These are no longer Portland Public Schools. You don't see, for example, Vestal Elementary. We just have the top 10 for Beaverton. You can also knit this way. If you hit the little arrow by the knit button, knit with parameters, it'll bring up a little pop-up. And you could type, for example, oh, I need to get the name of another district. Let me get what Hillsborough. I have to see what it's called. It's just Hillsborough SD1J. I'll knit with parameters. I'll put that in, knit that. All right, I'm back in my document here. I'm going to refresh this, and you can see now it's using different schools, and these are from Hillsborough. Now, this is beyond the scope of this course, but you can actually use this idea of parameters to generate 10, 20, 50, 100 reports at a time. Say I wanted to generate one report for each district in Oregon. I could do that by using parameters. And I'll post a link in the Learn More section so you can read about how that's done. If you're looking for additional options in your YAML, check out R Markdown, the definitive guide. And again, I'll have a link in the Learn More section. It's a great book that gives you all of the various options you can use in your YAML to change the output. I also suggest taking a look at the YAML this package. It makes it a lot easier. There's so many options for your YAML. It makes it a lot easier to kind of remember what they are and easily create a YAML that you can just copy into the top of your document and have it knit exactly the way you want it to. So I put a My Turn page here, but I've actually done this along the way, so I'm not going to do that. We'll go straight to the Your Turn. I want you to add a table of contents, make it floating, adjust the default figure height, width, and captions, and add a parameter in the YAML and use it in your body to dynamically create a table of the top 10 districts by various race ethnicity categories. All right. Okay. All right, I am in the report here. I'm going to put HTML document down here, 2 spaces, colon, and I'm going to adjust the figure height, the default figure height, I should say. I'll do fig height equals 8 and fig width 10. I'm just going to delete the fig width there. What else am I going to do? I need to add a table of contents, so I'll do TOC true, TOC float true. I also want to add figure caption, so I'll do fig caption true. And then to do that, I'm going to need to go down to a place where I actually make a figure. Let's say here, and fig.cap equals test caption. Okay, let me go ahead and knit that, make sure that all works. All right, I am in my HTML document here. You can see I have a floating table of contents. I didn't set a default number of levels for the table of contents. I actually only have an introduction header, so that's all we got. What else? Yeah, my figure width and height are applied here. So it was, what was it? 8 inches high, 10 inches wide. Oops, sorry. That's applied to both of those. You can see I have a caption here, test caption. Cool. All right, let me add a parameter now. So I'm going to do params. Let me take a look back at the instructions to dynamically create a table of the top 10 districts by various race ethnicity categories. So I'm going to add the parameter race ethnicity category, and by default we are using Hispanic/Latino. So I've created my parameter. Now I need to go down and actually apply it. So I'm going to actually just run down to here because then it'll give me access to my params. It's technically, the data structure is technically a list, which if you know about, I have not actually taught you about lists. They're a different kind of data structure. Just know that when we type params $, that will give us access to race ethnicity category. So I could knit this. Nothing will change because this is the same. But let me actually look at the various race ethnicity categories. Let's say we want to see which school district has the highest Black or African American community. Change that, knit that. And while that's knitting, I'll say, here we're only actually applying this in one place, so it doesn't, I could just as easily type Black African American here. But the advantage of using parameters is that if you're doing it in multiple places, you only have to set it once, and then you can knit and have it apply throughout. And you can use parameters to do, like I was talking about before, generate multiple reports at a time. All right, so I'm looking at this. Yeah, so now you can see here, it's showing us the top districts in terms of growth of the African American population. I will say almost certainly these are quite small districts. I actually know by looking at their names. I wouldn't actually read too much into this, but just know that this happened dynamically. And I could do the same thing. Let me grab another group, like let me grab white. And if I go down here to knit with parameters, it'll pop this up. I'll put in white, knit again. All right, I can refresh this now, and you can see districts that have the highest growth in their white population over those 2 years. Okay, I'm gonna stop my recording. I'm just looking at what I'm going to do next. Oh, right. Inline R Code. Just actually scrolling through. Okay, let me start my recording again. The next thing we're going to talk about is Inline R Code. This is important because it enables us to make our reports as reproducible as possible. Take a look at these two bits of text. In 2019, there were 854 German speakers in California, and what looks to be exactly identical, right? Well, these are not identical. Let me show you what I used to make each of them. For the first one, I simply wrote out the text. But for the second one, I did this. In 2019, there were what's that called? Gosh, I can't remember the name now. Backtick. Thank you. For the second one, I wrote in 2019 there were backtick R California German speakers, backtick German speakers in California. And what happens here is that when I use this format, see how I've highlighted the backtick R California German speakers? It actually applies the code. So California German speakers here is actually a variable that you would create that would have the number of German speakers in 2019, in this case 854. Let me give you an example to make this a bit more concrete. So for my turn, I'm going to add a line to my report that uses inline code. Sorry, I have a crying kid in the background, just holding out for a second, seeing if he gets a hold of himself. All right, I'm back in my document. I'm going to actually change this back to Portland SD1J since I'm writing this primarily about Portland.
Stop. Do you need a timeout? Stop. No, I'm not done yet. Knock it off.
All right, let's go ahead and use some inline R code here. Let's say we want to add a line here that talks about the number of districts total. So I'm going to add a code chunk. First, I'm going to need to make a variable. I could do this. Actually, let me run down to here. Let me run this to give myself access to this 3rd grade math proficiency. So I could go down here and I could do 3rd grade math proficiency, filter, and I'm actually going to do the same thing here. Filter district equals params district, which in this case is going to be Portland SD1J. So if I actually run that, you can see it gives me the total number of schools. Let me see. I want to count how many schools there were in 2017 and 2018. A few different ways you could do this, but I'm actually just going to do count year, which will count how many times we see 2017-18 and how many times we see 2018-2019. All right, so there were 64. So what I need to do is I need to make this into a variable. So I could, for example, type there were 64 districts in and I could type Portland Public Schools in 2017. Actually, let me even type it out this way. Portland SD1J in 2017, 2018. And whoops, I typed districts schools and 64 schools in 2018, 2019. Okay, I could do that and run it and it would run no problem. I could do, for example, I could make this code chunk, or I could just like delete this code chunk because now I've found the answer and I don't need it anymore. I could knit this, that would work. But what happens if we get some new data and we realize, oh, that's not actually right? Well, we don't want to have to go in and manually do it again. So let's actually make these into variables. So run that again. Whoops. So I'm going to do filter, whoops, put it over here. Basically, I want to extract this 64. And actually, because of the same, I'm just going to add 2018, 2019. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use the pull function, which allows us to take a 2D data frame and convert it into a 1D vector. So it'll basically pull out the variables here. So now we have 64, 64. I am going to do this. I'm going to now use the unique function, which will then just return, because they're identical, just return one of them. All right. Now I'm going to assign this a I'm going to create an object here called number of schools. Okay. Now I'm going to run this, and you can see now I have a variable called number of schools. Like I could even run that, and it returns 64. Okay. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually need to put this up above because I'm going to use it right here. So now I'm going to replace where it says 64 with this, backtick R, and then whatever I put here will be evaluated as R code. So now if I put number of schools, when I knit this, it should show up as 64. All right, I am back here. I have refreshed this, and you can see now I have a line. There were 64 schools in Portland SD1J in 2017, 2018, and 2018, 2019. And I've done that because this has been evaluated as R code. I could even actually replace this here. And I could, do R params $district. Get that. All right, refresh this. And you can see it doesn't actually change, but we know behind the scenes it's different. Now let me go up here. What if I change this to Hillsborough? Knit that. All right, if I come back into my report, refresh this, you can see now, so here it's actually different. It's giving me 2726. That must mean that there were not the same number of schools in 2017, 2018 as there were in 2018, 2019 in Hillsborough. So I'd have to work with this to make it as dynamic as possible. I might actually want to write it so that I create a variable for 2017, 2018, and then one for 2018, 2019. There are any number of ways to do it. The most important point here is I'm using this, I'm creating that dynamically using Inline R Code. All right, for your turn, I want you to add a line to your report that uses Inline R Code. All right, I am in the report here. I'm going to actually use the parameters here. So let me add a line that has inline R code. So I'm going to say the table below, and I'm going to say what it shows. Shows the districts with the highest growth of their, and I know this is their African American population, so I could write, I think it's written as Black / African American. Student population from 2017, 2018 to 2018, 2019. And that would work, but I could also make it dynamic. So I could add, R params, and let me grab the param name here. Let me make sure I get it right. Race, ethnicity, category. Now let me go ahead and knit this. Okay, I am in my report, my knitted version of my report. I go down here, and you can see now this text has been added dynamically. You know, actually, let me do it in... One additional way that you can use inline R code is here. You note that we have the date here. That's actually the date that I created this document, but we could make this dynamic using inline R code. So I could add R, and then there is a function in base R, just R Sysdate. And let me go ahead and knit that. What that Sysdate function does is it just returns today's date. Whoops, I think I need to put quotes around that. Let me do that again. Another way that you can use inline R code is you can have the date update dynamically. So right now the date I have on my report is 4/29/2020. That was the date that I actually started this report. But let's actually have it update. So I'm going to keep it in quotes, but then I'm going to put that backtick R, and I'm going to use the Sysdate function. Sysdate, you can see if I go down to my console, you can see I actually ran it before here. I'll run it again, Sysdate, it just returns today's date in that format. So let me go ahead and knit this. All right, when I come back to my report here, I've refreshed it, and you can see it has the updated date. There are ways that you can change the appearance of the date here, have it show up in a more typical format. This is a really good format for analysis. We're not going to go into how to do that, but just know that you could do that using our inline code chunk. All right, if anyone's still watching, I am going to stop for today. Thank you for watching. I will be back tomorrow, and I will be recording some lessons on making your report shine in Word, in HTML, PDF, although I have a very specific take. I basically don't recommend using PDF unless you're using the page down package. And then I'll talk about kind of various other formats, so exporting to make slides, to make dashboards, other formats. Great, so I hope you can join me tomorrow.